Hi everybody, welcome back to the parlour. This is I think video 5 of the custom Escher girls, and in this video I am going to show you how to airbrush up the skin. For those of you who've been regularly watching, and thank you, you'll have noticed that recently I've been getting increasing amounts of shit through the airbrush from my Scale 75 paints. So what I've done this morning is painstakingly sieved them all, changed them into new bottles, removed all the particles and thinned them out a little bit, which has now left me with a very nice, he says, a very nice consistency of paint to work with. I let it dry a little bit from between when I was working. There we go, lovely. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I've masked off all the girls, and on camera as best I can do, I'm just going to quickly work my way around these girls. I'll start to block in the skin. What I found interesting doing this, despite doing thousands of Forge World kits in my life, and checking these time and time again for mould lines and everything else, as soon as I start painting them I end up finding more. I don't know if anybody else does that. It drives me fucking insane, which means you end up having to stop and carve off, or worst case scenario, just keep going and painting around. Wow, why am I shaking so much? Okay, so I'm using Scale 75 Pink Flesh as the base colour. It's just a nice solid reliable base colour. Goes on well. Even after all that work this morning on the paints, I'm still getting some shit through, which is a little frustrating, I'm not going to lie, because I did spend fucking hours doing it and I should have just been painting. But you know, bad artist blames his tools, so just have to get on with it. Okay, you see that they come out quite a strong pink actually when they're starting at this level. That's fine, because we're going to work up and then actually work back down again afterwards, as you often see me do. But and obviously the beauty of masking off the miniature is that you can be a bit fucking slapdash with it. I'll still get some bleed. No matter how well I mask them off, there's always some bleed, and you need to be prepared for that. But it does make it a lot easier. And remember, for anybody who's just watching, this isn't how I paint the whole miniature. This is the pre-shades, the kind of colour map for the brushwork, which will come later. Anybody who has watched a lot of my videos and say looked at the ogre in the flesh and stuff will know why I'm doing it like this. It does make life a lot faster though, which is a bit of a blessing when you're painting a lot of minis, like I'm doing here and now. I had somebody ask me a question the other day about the feathering with the airbrush. It's a personal style with me. I don't know if it's something every airbrush artist does. But I like to do it because it keeps the airbrush from clogging as much as possible, or as little as possible even, and it keeps from over thumping paint when you get a bit overzealous. Just feels a bit more controlled for me. Oh fuck. Fuck for that, it's an elbow pad. I thought I'd left a massive square bit of sprue on there. Then can you imagine how bad that would be at this stage? I bet everybody who's watching it has done that though. I certainly have done that far, far too often. With these girls you've got to be sure that you get into the necks, because the neck area is quite withdrawn. See in there, look. An airbrush does help with that, to be honest. Hopefully I am getting a somewhat better camera angle on this one for you. He says, and then looks down to see that he's just painted that whole section off camera. And focus, come on. There we go. Dynamic poses are great, less great when you've got to paint them. But as you can see, at least we are banging through these at a rate of knots. I don't want to be spending too long prepping up this skin. Oh, off camera again, sorry. the areas where they have got shaved heads. Lots of people paint them as hair. I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to paint it as stubble in the same way that I did on the Ogrin. So it needs to have a flesh undercoat. Yikes, that one a bit thick. Okay, we're getting there. These miniatures have been sat in the studio just overnight since I last touched them, and there's already like 20, ooh, let's close that off so it doesn't get paint on the trousers. That would be a disaster. There's already like tiny hair follicles and stuff, and there's nothing in the studio apart from my painting stuff, and nobody else comes in here. Just goes to show. Foreign contaminants anywhere. Okay, she's looking nice. If you look just down to the last widge of paint, so I'm just spraying up just enough to avoid wasting anything. Oh, and then here we have my favourite one, which I've probably said every time I've picked her up. This one had some slightly rough skin from glue, so I don't know if you could see that, but I just overloaded it with paint, which is an old spray can artist, graffiti artist tip trick, for levelling surfaces. It's a bit risky because obviously if it goes wrong then you've blattered it up too much and you lose some of your detail and it runs, but it's worth doing. What I'm going to do now is just very quickly just go round again the torsos and heads of these girls that I did first, just to make sure they've actually got enough paint coverage while the paint's while I've still got paint, just until the paint runs out basically. We are rapidly approaching the end of this paint, so it's worked out well. You see here on this one had a bit of overbleed. So I wanted to just touch that up, which I've done. And I think there might have been one more that had some overbleed. To that one? No, okay. Maybe there wasn't. I knew the one was bad. And then we're almost ready for the next colour now, which will be added on using the zenithal method. Sorry, my battery's running low on my iPhone and it keeps doing that. I hope it keeps recording. Down to the very last dregs now. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video here, and then when I come back I'll have cleaned the airbrush and we'll go on to the next colour. Cheers guys, bye.